Huh. I'm not gonna lie, we did get some interesting news. So yeah, this year it's been kinda a slow start for League of Legends. The Demacian season came out in January and not much happened since. We did get some awesome comics, we did get a new metagame that keeps getting updated, but everything else kinda flatlined. And now we got the news that might not really change. In fact, overall, this year might be slower than we thought. However, we have to mention that there is, on paper, a good reason why all of this is happening. That's because there are big things that are coming. But it just so happens to be that 2026 might be a sacrifice year. Regardless, Riot just dropped the latest dev update. And while the news there are mostly good, there were also some things mentioned that might raise an eyebrow or two. And so, let's have a look at the interesting news. As always, the video starts with Pabro and Meddler. They mentioned that they recorded this about a month ago on February the 9th, after which they start with a quick feedback on all the changes that landed on January. So overall, the community is kinda polarized on what we got. Some people don't really like the fact that there are moments where you don't really do anything in League. You just chill in your lane and that's it. And so Riot confirms that that's by design. There is now supposed to be some downtime compared to the last season, which was very hectic. Although, even with all the changes slowing things down, the game duration is the same. We then learned that Phaelites have been a decent addition so far. It really helped top lane get some agency over the game. However, some of the Phaelites might be a little bit too strong for the jungle, so Riot is just keeping an eye on balance. On top of this, we also got the role quests, and it seems like the vast majority of people like these. Not only do they make the roles feel more rewarding, but they also highlight the role's fantasy. Better yet, they help some of the lanes that previously had trouble with winning games after they won their lanes. To be exact, Riot is talking about AD carries and top laners. As a result, these two roles are now getting quite strong in the late game, and so once again Riot is just keeping an eye on the balance. Then they also talk about all the new and old items that came to League or returned to League. Apparently, all of these new and returning items have a really high adoption rate. In other words, people actually use them, with Gunblade and Stormrazor getting the most praise. What is interesting though is that Riot then asks us what items we would like to see in the game next. I just thought it would be funny, though Meddler jokingly said that they do not plan on bringing back DFG. That's a shame, I thought it would be funny. After this, they also address all the changes to Ranked. Specifically, Riot tried to make Ranked even more accessible. That's also why they are really going after toxicity and everything surrounding that. But as a result, it was revealed that it worked. Because now, according to the stats, people are sticking to their ranked climb more than before. That is really cool. On top of which, the time before you get into a game was shrunk down by about 30%. With one of the reasons why it is so fast being the fact that people aren't really dodging the games as much as they did before. In fact, dodging went down from 19% to 4%. That is actually quite a big success. Then they also made some adjustments to identifying similar skill levels. Specifically, there is one interesting edge case for Iron players. It turns out Iron is about 14% of the entire player base. However, the vast majority of it are veteran players. We are talking about people that played League for years and they are still in Iron. The thing is, Riot wants Iron to be exclusively for new players. And so they adjusted the rate at which your MMR catches up to your rank, meaning that most of the veteran players should be at least in silver, with the Iron finally being just for new players. Although they also mentioned that this might not be enough, and so eventually Riot might have to add in one more tier below Iron. On Reddit, Meddler even mentioned that if something like this happens, the potential names for this tier might include the Wood Division, or even Sand Division. But that's not really it for the edge cases of the ranked system, because apparently a similar thing is happening towards the high end of the ladder. as was always the case, the jump between Diamond 4 and Diamond 1 is as big as 2 other entire tiers. In the past, Riot tried to combat this by adding in the Emerald tier, so that Emerald would suck in all the Diamond 4 players, with the Diamond tier then being a normal Diamond tier. But as everyone got better and better at the game, eventually everyone ended up in D4 once again. And so now, with the new adjustments, the ladder was simply moved up. So now, the Master MMR is higher, which means that in order to get into Grandmaster or Challenger, you need a lot more LP. But as a result, if you were previously in Diamond 1, this year you're likely just gonna be in Master. However, once again, Riot mentioned that even this might not be enough. And so, there might also be one more additional tier in the Apex tiers. That is simply because the difference between a 0 Master and a 900 Master is still massive. But outside of this, Riot confirmed that overall this year rank distribution has been pretty good. They fixed a bug where some people climbed through Challenger a little bit too fast, and they also fixed a bug that helped duos climb faster. So going forward, to improve this system even more, next they will be improving the system that does the autofill matching, which also includes the matchmaking for the secondary role. But that's all the news for the ranked climb. So next, we go into Shyvana news. That's right, we all saw the cinematic, we all knew it was coming, and so now, spoiler alert, this might be the only thing we're getting. And so next, Ed joins Pabro to talk about her. You see, at this point, Riot kinda mastered how to do VGUs, which is good, because it took them quite a few failures to get into this point. But now, Riot knows what to do, and so of course, what they did is that they flew in a bunch of Shyvana mains into LA to get feedback. And after getting all the feedback, Riot learned that most Shyvana mains kinda like the base kit. We'll dive into the specifics of what actually happened to Shyvana in another video, but just know that her Q is still the auto-attacking reset, but it is that ability that now gives you the AoE damage for the jungle clears, and she now has a new version of her passive, which is infinitely stacking! Once again! Now she will get armor and MR from killing large monsters, but to make the stacks impactful, they will also give her more shield on her W and more health in her dragon form. I'll be honest, I like how all of this fits in with the theme of draconic stacking. I mean, Smolder does the exact same thing, except he gets damage. So being another dragon, it is cool to see that Shyvana also stacks. Except, at least in her case, you can play around all the stacking resistances with Armor Shred. You can't do nothing about Smolder. But then they also talk about the elephant in the room, and that is the fact that Shyvana's ultimate is an actual dragon. What is cooler is that even though it may look small at first, it does get bigger with every rank of her ultimate. Then Riot also mentioned that both AP and AD bruisers are still viable, but if you wanna play the very classic AP Mage Burst, it is still there, but it might not be the most optimal anymore. And lastly, they mentioned that she will hit the Rift on 26.6. And when that happens, all of her skins will be unvaulted, and there will also be a special skin bundle for the leg day. Of course, the leg day has been a very historical moment for League of Legends, and one just might wonder, will it also include Ezreal? Anyway, that's it for Shyvana, for now. And so next we dive into game modes, or specifically one specific game mode. Because ARAM Mayhem is just getting too big. So ARAM Mayhem just got a new update, and apparently there will be more updates to come. And that's because, as they confirmed, people just can't stop playing this game mode. Right now, the play rate is way above anything else that Riot tried. And so overall, ARAM Mayhem seems to be a massive success. And so Riot will just keep adding more fun and controlled chaos into the updates. Originally, ARAM Mayhem was supposed to be a limited time game mode, and it seems like that is still supposed to be the case, but then Riot mentioned that they do not have any plans on shutting it down yet. They plan on keeping it up for a while longer, and it truly seems like it will stay up as long as people are interested in it. But as they added, we should also expect more updates for this game mode in the next dev update. Now, for the most part, that's it for the news we got. But then they also decided to do FAQ. And there we got more interesting nuggets. So first of all, WASD will get to ranked when it's ready. That's kinda all we know, it's just not ready yet. Then we learned that Twisted Treeline might potentially come back in the future. Riot would have to pull off a lot of work to port it into the modernized engine, but as Pabro confirmed, it is not exactly impossible. Then we also got some words on True Skill 2. True Skill 2 was a system that Riot wanted to add into League, which looks at how well you play during the games to really give you the LP you deserve after winning. But it seems like the system has some holes and Riot has just better tools that they made themselves. So for now, it seems like True Skill 2 is just getting shelved. Then there was a question about getting more bans for ranked. There they mentioned that the most banned champions are always the most popular ones. So if they gave people more bans, then they would simply have less fun in League. So you only get one chance, make it count. After which they talk about a very big question. Will there be a new champion in Season 1? And the answer is no. That's right, the Cytheria dream is officially dead. And that begs the question. Who exactly was that guy? Well, you see, as it was confirmed, the vast majority of the League of Legends team is now working on the big update, which the community dubbed League of Legends 2, which Riot confirmed is not League of Legends 2, which should arrive sometime in 2027. Meaning that the people who would be working on a new champion are working on that. This makes it really feel like 2027 is gonna be a big year. However, that also makes it really obvious that this year is gonna be slow, and so 2026 is kinda getting sacrificed for the future. Now, after this, they confirmed that they wanna talk about this big update after MSI. And the truth is, I don't really think this is necessarily bad. I'll be honest, I really don't think shoving more new champions into the game gives the game more value. We have over 160 champions, what is one more realistically gonna do? So what Riot might be trying to do here is that they might wanna try and see what exactly happens if there are no new champions. If it turns out that people don't really care that much, then Riot might want to reevaluate new content for League of Legends. I mean, yeah, let's be honest, that does sound like a bit of a gamble. But don't worry, there's a little bit more context that we need, and we'll talk about that later. First, what they did confirm is that Season 2 will have a new champion. And apparently that champion is gonna have connections to both Season 1 and Season 2. It has to be that guy. After this, they got asked, will they kill more champions in the lore? Pabro said that the answer is and always will be maybe. They just don't really wanna overdo it. Then, are they improving punishment for botters and cheaters? The answer is always yes. In fact, there is a new ban wave incoming, which is gonna include over 1 million accounts that were either botted or cheated on or bought. What's funny is that we're talking about 1 million accounts that were played on last year. That's a lot of illegal botters being unhappy. Then they got asked, will this year have a year-long narrative? Where they told us that every year will be different. And so while last year was connected all the way through, this year, Season 1 and Season 2 will have some connections, though they will not be as tight as last year, and Season 3 will be standalone. And apparently it will be obvious why as we get towards the end of the year. And that totally makes sense if you think about what they said previously. Some of you might remember that Riot previously teased that maybe not all seasons will be entirely based on canonical lore, by which they teased that there might be seasons based on alternative universes, aka skin lines. On top of this, Season 3 kinda lines up with the end of the year celebrations, that's where we usually get worlds, and so with the standalone season you can kinda go crazy. On top of which, remember that they still plan on releasing the big update in 2027. So it would make sense to kinda cut off the narrative before that to give them some room. So yes, based on the previous teasing, Season 3 is likely gonna be based on some kind of a skin line. After which we got one more critical question for Pabro: can Shyvana lay eggs? To which he said he doesn't know. But that's a lie, he does know. On Reddit it was confirmed that they had an entire detailed answer ready. but they had to cut it because it would likely be twisted out of context. But that's it for the FAQ as well. And so they ended the video with a good old Summoner Showcase. That's right, back in my day, Riot used to do these every week. It's basically a show where they showcase what the community is doing. It's pretty cool, and so it's cool to see it back. However, that doesn't mean we are done yet. Because after all of these news got out, SpiderX then got us all the comments from Reddit. And there we got the interesting nuggets. And so, first of all, we learned that Demacia Rising, this amazing metagame, is really gonna be the only metagame of this year. Now keep in mind, March just started. So yes, we are done with metagames, because once again, most of those people are gonna be working on stuff in 2027. Now, if you thought we would be getting too much content, don't worry, we will also not be seeing an Exalted skin in a while. And that is because when they were kinda rushing the skins, they weren't good, and Viego turned out pretty well. But it took a while to make Viego, so 2027 better be really good. Then they did also confirm some updates for Arena, specifically focusing on augments. And they did also confirm that there is another champion update in the works, but no specifics there. But then, most important of all, we got more context for the champion. Because the champion, which we are getting in Season 2, is in fact the only champion of this year. This is actually a scary move. Now, as I mentioned before, technically it could be just fine, but for Riot this is the first time in history that they've done this, and so it is a big step towards the unknown. Of course, this then brings up the question, how will this year progress? With no new champions, there are no real ties to the universe, there are no new bios, no new stories, and so will we just end up with a few cinematics and then a few comics? To be honest, this would be fine, but normally, cinematics are here to give us new stuff. But if we don't get new stuff, what would be the cinematics showcasing? Well, I kinda know what will happen. We might get cinematics for skin lines. And that's the really scary part. We just don't know how much we are actually getting in 2026. All we know is that all of this should result in 2027 being big. Now, thankfully, Meddler also confirmed that Nora, which is a new champion in Wild Rift, might get ported into League at some point. But we know how long this takes, so don't expect this in 2026 anyway. That was just a question for the future. And so, overall, maybe don't make any big plans for 2026. And if you are a content creator, you better have a backup plan. Did you know I'm making my own game? It's called Funus, it is full of lore, please wishlist it.